Welcome to the Foundation Series, your deep dive into startup compensation with industry leaders from across the startup world. Join me, Matt McFarlane, a people operations leader turned compensation specialist, as we uncover the strategies and practices driving success in tech startups around the world. Hear insights from heads of people, founders, and experts as we explore how to build robust compensation frameworks that not only fuel growth and retention, but do so in the dynamic startup environment that we all know and love. Let's get into it. Most companies have a compensation philosophy. Few of them are useful. In this episode, we break down how to design a comp philosophy that's clear, consistent, and actually helps you hire and retain the people you want. Aubrey, it's so great to have you here on the Foundation Series. Thank you for joining me. You're obviously an incredibly prominent voice on LinkedIn for a range of different things. I know I have really thoroughly enjoyed, reading and engaging with your content. So it's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'd love for you to spend a minute introducing yourself for those who maybe aren't as deeply familiar with you as I am.
Hey everyone. If you haven't heard my digital soapbox, LinkedIn is kind of where I store all my unsolicited opinions. I am Aubrey Blanche-Serellano, and I'm the founder of a company called the MathPath. But what I really focus on is helping organizations build and scale equitable people and culture initiatives, as well as responsible AI. So think of me as someone who can kind of operationalize ethics within the context of business. But I'm so excited to be here because one of the things that I'm most proud of is the work that I've done around pay equity at Culture Amp. So I was a VP at Culture Amp most recently, where we were able last year to report the smallest gender pay gap of our peers at companies. So I like to say we fucking won justice, which feels like the best win you could possibly ever have, which probably tells you a lot about me.
All right, Aubrey, we're diving into it. We're going to talk about everything compensation philosophy this episode. I think in my experience, a lot of companies either don't have them, or if they do, they're kind of this thing hidden in the back room. Let's talk about why they suck, and where do companies often go wrong in setting up their compensation philosophies.
So I think people kind of pull them out of thin air, and I think that's a mistake. I think in many cases, the work I like to do, and I'm not a comp expert, but I've worked with a lot of brilliant comp people, is thinking about kind of who your ICP is. So in marketing, right, is who's the ideal person you want at your workplace, and what comp philosophy attracts and retains them. So I've talked about this. I've only ever worked at really mission and values aligned organizations. So I've gotten a lot of practice at this. And so I've been at companies where they did provide quite low base pay, but the equity allocation was high because they said, we want you to take a big chunk of ownership. I've also been at a company where it said, we don't want comp to be the reason you come, and we don't want it to be the reason you leave. And so we want it to be sufficient and good, but are not optimizing for someone who's picking the company just because of the compensation package. We want it to feel attractive and fair, but we want to create space for something like mission alignment or values to be the reason that someone opts in. So that would be my first thing, is know who you're trying to attract before you set the rules of your comp philosophy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's really two things I always try to help companies identify when they're looking at their comp philosophy. And first and foremost is exactly like you said, what's our talent strategy? What are the skills we need, and kind of who do they exist in that we need to try and hire or bring into the business? And secondly, like, what are some of the ways that we think pay fundamentally needs to show up in the business? What are the sort of principles that we think about? And then really from there, it's okay, how can we build some practices that can underpin that, can support it? How transparent do you think companies should be? And I suspect I know which way you're going to go on this, but how transparent do you think companies should be on their comp philosophy, but in particular around the trade-offs? Because I think the entire world of compensation is built on compromise. So talk to me about like what role you think, or how you think comp should show up in that sense.
I think being as transparent as possible is a win, because I find that we know that people are really motivated by experiencing justice or fairness. Um, and uh, and so Explaining to someone how you arrived at a decision can actually create an experience of procedural fairness for them or procedural justice that allows them to accept an outcome they don't like. And so I think that it's incumbent on you to be able to say, here are our priorities. So I love the even over framework, I think, for that to say, because it allows you not to shut down someone's personal priorities. It allows you to say, I hear that, and we've chosen to prioritize this even over what you've articulated. So it doesn't require kind of a minimization or an invalidation of someone's personal perspective or priorities in order to share. This is how we're working, and then you have the opportunity to consent or opt in to working if that works for you. So I just think transparency and clarity is a really core part of fully informed consent. And I just believe that the employee employer relationship should be that as much as possible. So that's like an ethics thing for me. Um, and I also find that, you know, a lot of startups like can't articulate it. And so people feel unfair because they haven't done the background work. And I don't think it needs to be all that complicated in order to do. Like, I know that founders are incredibly stretched. So that's the other thing is like, I don't think this needs to be an elaborate philosophy. It'd be something as simple as saying, we target this percent of the market. Here are the three qualities in people that we're optimizing for. And here are the four factors we consider when we set pay. Like, you should be able to figure that out in a couple of hours, maybe speaking to an expert. So I do want to level set that I'm not talking about this like grand thing that might work at a large company. Like it can just be a couple of principles and factors that you're able to put in a one pager and share with people.
Yeah, brilliant. It's so important. And I know you kind of mentioned this on the AI episode around pay is thought of as this really deeply analytical, deeply commercial thing, and it is. But I think even more so, it's this deeply human thing. It's a deeply emotive thing. You're talking to people about their ability to go on a holiday, or put a roof over their head, feed their family, those sorts of things. And I think your ability to speak to how you came to the answer, the number, is even more important than the number itself often, and your ability to arm your managers and your leaders and organization generally with an understanding around how that's been determined is just an insane unlock when it comes to just making pay work for the organization, making it less of a kind of a distraction as well. And I think this is sort of leading to my question is like, what role do you think co-design plays, or how do you think companies should go about getting to the answer of like, well, what should our, pay practices look like in support of the people that we want? So before we kind of communicate the answer and apply the even over framework, how are we kind of defining these things, do you think, and what role does our existing people play in that?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think one, when you're building the philosophy, is talking to your kind of the people in your company who fall into your ICP, the people who are really good examples. Talk to them about what's important to them about pay, what it means to them, how it motivates them, or what aspects of it do or do not motivate them. Like literally, just ask some questions. Don't make assumptions when you have kind of your target market available to you. And I think inform that. I don't necessarily think you give the average employee a veto on your philosophy. So I don't think that you can build a comp philosophy by committee because it's too spicy. Someone has to be willing to take accountability for owning the hard trade offs that are required to build something that works. But then I also think over time, especially when you see big market shifts or things like that, big generational change, going back and doing focus groups with your employees once you get bigger to say, tell us about your pay practices. How are these landing with you? What does this mean to you? What isn't clear? So I think that using your employees as your best population about feedback about how this is working, recognizing that everyone's always unhappy with pay. Everyone
Could
always
always
wants
be
more
doing
money.
more. Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily think indexing on like the, oh, I want to get paid more money feedback is the most helpful thing always. But that idea of, is this motivating? Do I understand it? Do I know how to use all of the things I'm offered? Right? Because it's like, oh, well, you're not using $10,000 worth of the benefits you have. Like before you ask for more money, let's utilize the money you're being given. So I think that's it, is that there should be co-design, you should be listening, but I also think it comes into play in operationalizing that philosophy. So with candidates, getting really clear with them about like not just what's your number, but what motivates you, what's important to you in your compensation, and tell me more about what that looks like. It humanizes the conversation, but it also allows you to put together an offer that balances the philosophy of the business with the particular needs of the individual.
Yeah, love it. And do you think there's ever, or I guess, is it ever okay not to have a comp philosophy? And if the answer is no, then when do you think is the right time for a company to really, in the sort of growth and the life cycle of a company, when do you think is the right time to bring that in?
So I think you should always have one. I think its level of sophistication should change with the business. So, for example, if you're just hiring your first 2 or 3 people, it can be something as simple as we're targeting this part of market and we're heavily towards equity. Okay, great. That's your philosophy. It's not complicated, but you're not just making a number up either. Like, I don't think you should ever make a comp number up or just go, that's what this person wants, therefore I'm giving it to them. And the reason is because I think you're making something simple for yourself in the moment that causes immeasurable pain down the line. And so, because I always talk about with scaling businesses, you need to be really disciplined about the two-way versus one-way door decisions. And giving someone a pay package is a one-way door. Like, you cannot cut it later, no matter how bad it messes up everything in the future. And so you need to just have a little bit of principle around why you're doing something, um, so that it'll scale later. But again, if you're at 100 people, your comp philosophy needs to be more sophisticated than if you're at 3.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right. Bringing this one to a close, if a head of people listening to this is wanting to get started on their journey of really building a great comp philosophy, I'm particularly interested in the comp principle side of things. What's one question you would arm them with to help them have that conversation with their exec team around how we think pay should show up in the organization?
Oh, I would ask the exec, what question would you be embarrassed to answer about our comp? And the reason I think that's useful is because it will tell you what they won't tolerate, right? Because the idea is nothing about your comp philosophy should you be ashamed to admit. And so if there is something about it or there's a possibility of something, you can design against that as the worst case. I think it's obvious, what do you want? What do you care about? But that, like, what would you be embarrassed to admit if it were true, so we can make sure we don't get to that outcome.
I love it. I feel like there'd be so much to unpack in that kind of
Oh, it'd be
that
like the
question. I'm adding it to
spiciest
my
combo.
repertoire.
I was gonna say I love asking questions like that because I think people, it's so visceral. You get really
Yeah.
good data out of it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think people kind of reflect, I think, as well. Like, I immediately found myself reflecting on the sort of pay experiences I've had. And I'm like, gosh, what have been the like really the ones where I've just been like, oh, where have I been really uncomfortable to answer this because it's just not been done well. And I think it forces that, which is awesome.
Totally. All right.
Amazing.
Now I can't wait for people to come tell me what's come out when they've asked it.
Yes, please share the answers that you've received. We will anonymize them. I look forward to hearing all about them. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for helping us to make comp philosophies that don't suck. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here. I feel like you do such incredible work, so I feel super honored to be in your company.
Oh, thank you. A good comp philosophy should reflect your talent strategy and be something you are never embarrassed to explain. If you can't articulate it clearly, it's not finished. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Foundation Series. Make sure to head over to our website to subscribe to the Foundation Series for monthly editions featuring future interviews on startup compensation. In each edition, we'll explore the different strategies, trends, and challenges faced by startups around the world. If you have a burning topic you'd like me to cover or a standout guest that you want to hear from, drop me an email so I can dive deeper into the compensation topics that matter most to you. Join me next time as we continue to uncover the strategies and practices driving success in global tech startups around the world. Thanks for listening.